Good afternoon, everyone. Mayong hapon sa tanan. Today we gather once again for today's Raha Humabonde lecture. Welcome to each and every one of you. Maayong pag-abot ug maayong pagpaminaw ug pagbati. Organized by the Cebu City Government through the Cultural and Historical Affairs Office, today's webinar is also in time for the closing ceremony of the Quincentennial Commemorations in the Philippines. This afternoon, we are very blessed to be joined by two esteemed speakers who will be talking about two topics that would surely be of interest of all our history lovers out there. By the way, once again, my name is Patricia and I will be your moderator for today's online lecture. And it is indeed always nice to be back for today's online gathering. Now, we're going to jump right into our first speaker. May I remind everyone that if you have questions for our speaker, please do comment your questions below in our comment section. So you'll find that right here. If you are streaming live on Facebook, then put it on the comments section over there. And our staff will be monitoring your questions and they will be forwarding them to me for our open forum to be done after the talk of our second speaker. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we shall now proceed directly to our webinar. Our first topic is entitled The Importance of 1521 Events in Cebu from a National Perspective. Our speaker obtained his Bachelor of Arts in History from the University of the Philippines. He then proceeded to finish his master's degree in History from the same university. Currently, he is finishing his Doctor of Philosophy, major in anthropology from the University of the Philippines. And he has published numerous researches, has appeared in many historical documentaries, and he's also a multi-awarded academic. Currently, he is serving as an assistant professorial lecturer at the De La Salle University. I would say he is quite trending these days. and very much interesting with all of his opinions online. So ladies and gentlemen, known as a public historian, let us put our hands together for Professor Michael Charleston Xiao Chua.
Maayong hapon sa inyo tanan. Makasaysayang hapon po, Ma'am Chinggay Farrarons, one of the prettiest master of ceremonies and hosts around. No? Salamat po. It's always an honor to be introduced by you. No? And also, I would also like to acknowledge the presence ng hinahangaan nating Cebuano scholar, Dr. ERLINDA kay ALBURO. It's always an honor. No? Nahihiya ako lagi because Xiao is always getting me and talagang siyempre we defer to our scholars in Cebu, but I am always honored na you always consider me to speak. Ano? So the topic for today is quite ano yan eh, we should look at it. There are different opinions about the importance of 1521. And more importantly, there will be different opinions about the importance of Cebu, no? Pero dito I would like to distinguish na talagang merong importance ang 1521 at may importance ang role ng Cebu sa mga pangyayari na mahalaga na iyan. So we're going now to discuss that. So again, salamat po sa Cebu Cultural and Historical Affairs Office for inviting me to be one of the closing lectures of the Quincentennial Commemorations in the Philippines with Ma'am Linda Alburo. No? Again, I thank you. I think this is my 5th lecture in Xiao for the past year. So I thank you. I hope this is not the last, but I am, again, truly honored na we have had this partnership in the Quincentennial Commemoration year. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow me on my social media accounts, and look at my website, xiaochua.net, bangkadishow.wordpress.com, because our teachers need material. Nilalagyan po natin ng materials dyan para makatulong po sa ating mga guro sa buong Pilipinas. Okay, so we're now closing the Quincentennial Commemorations in the Philippines 2021-2022. Which of course commemorates the first circumnavigation of the world. This is a world event, very important. in the history of the world, in the history of science, humankind, achievement of man, which was, of course, the Magellan expedition, the Armada de Maluco, which returned without him, of course, because we all know na in Cebu province, Mactan Island, he was killed. That's why in the Philippines, Cebu province is the ground zero of the 500 years commemoration. Okay? So, yan ang ano niyan. So, we commemorate mainly in the story of the first circumnavigation of the world in the Philippines, yung victory in Mactan against of Lapu-Lapu and 1,500 Mactanons against Magellan. And last April 27, 2021, nagkaroon nga dyan ng commemoration. I'm glad to be present during that time na mangyari yung D-Day na tinatawag natin of the 500 years. And then yung Kadaugan, Catriona Gray was there. So, pinagdiwang natin si Lapu-Lapu. But again, di ba, we have to make distinctions about the political geography now of Cebu. Of course, they're in one area, which is Cebu. Pero we all know that the jurisdictions are different. We have a Cebu province, and in Cebu province, there are merong magkakaibang cities din, which are independent from the province in an administration-wise. You have Lapu-Lapu City and the capital, Cebu City. So, ang focus natin, because this is Cebu City Cultural and Historical Affairs Office, the focus is Cebu City. What is now known as Cebu City in 1521. So, yung Mactan, marami nang nag-discuss yan. In fact, I discussed it in the Lapu-Lapu Day last year in a webinar with Xiao. So, ang focus natin, Cebu City. And to see its important role in national history dun sa 1521 event. Now, of course, we all know that 1521 is important to Filipinos because of Yoyoy Villame, the great Cebuano singer, and conductor yata ng bus, But Yoyoy Villame became a famous singer at nagkaroon nga siya ng pinasikat niya yung story of Magellan among Filipinos. Diba? On March 16, 1521, when Philippines was discovered by Magellan. Diba? Tapos ano yung kanta doon? When Magellan landed in Cebu City, Raha met him, they were very happy. All people were baptized and built the Church of Christ. And that's the beginning of our Catholic life. So, doon pa lang makita nyo, important 1521, diba? When Magellan landed in Cebu City, Raja Humabon met him, they were very happy. All people were baptized and built the Church of Christ, and that's the beginning of our Catholic life. So, doon pa lang, most Filipinos are Catholics. Diba? Therefore, it is said that the 1521 in Cebu City is important because of the introduction of Catholicism. But we all know that in many ways, when Humabon was introduced Christianity by Magellan, we all know that they did not really put it into heart. Diba? That eventually they went back to their old beliefs. Supposedly. Diba? But, so ibig sabihin, putol na yung connection. And that's why there is actually a debate among historians before, because it was the great historian Teodoro Agoncillo who said there is no Philippine history before 1521. And that makes the Cebu 1521 events, very important because that is like the beginning of Philippine history. Yung the Armada de Maluco, the arrival of Magellan expedition in the Philippines, the visit in Cebu, is the beginning of Philippine history. Kasi the contention of Teodoro Agoncillo in historiography is very, very, shall we say, anong tawag doon? Positivist. No document, no history. And so, ang contention niya, walang pwedeng pagbatayan ng kasaysayan ng Pilipinas bago ang 1521. So kaya, nung kinakanta ni Yoyo yun, talagang we always look at the Yoyo song as the beginning of Philippine history. Which of course, to downplay 1521, Cebu Salazar, kasi yan, di ba, the colonization. But remember that 1521, we were not colonized. We were not colonized yet. It was just, kumbaga, Magellan came, Magellan died. Diba? So, some historians like Cebu Salazar, in my conversations with him, is saying, if you're going to look at the totality of Philippine history, hindi mahalaga yung 1521. Ayaw niya, yung group of historians in the UP Department of History after Agoncillo died wanted to take away that idea that 1521 is the start of Philippine history. Bakit? Because the agenda is to say na hindi totoong mga Spanish lang ang nagbigay ng history sa atin. Because before the coming of the Spaniards, we have an elaborate civilization. And of course, the number one evidence or one of the great evidences that we had a civilization was Cebu. So hindi pwedeng 1521 is the start of Philippine history. Hindi pwedeng there is no Philippine history before 1521. Diba? So, that's why, if you're going to look at it, and 1521 cannot be important because you have the real colonization of the Philippines will happen in 1565. Will begin in 1565 with the arrival of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi in the Visayas and in Cebu. Diba? So, yun po yung contention. That's why we're saying 1521, is it important? If it's not important, then what happened in Cebu in 1521 is not important as well. Diba? So, if we want to recognize or if we want to establish the importance of Cebu, of course, we can always argue na dili naman importante sa mga Cebuano na maging mahalaga sila sa kasaysayan ng Pilipinas. Because Cebu can stand on its own. But what I'm saying here is this, di ba? Ako, pinapahalagaan ko ang Cebu, even if I'm not Cebuano. I am glad that the Cebuanos are Filipinos and part of the Filipino nation. So you might as well see how important Cebu in 1521 was in what we call the general configuration of Philippine history. So, ito pa. Aside from the being debatable of 1521, when I first visited Cebu in 2014, nagulat ako kasi may monumento pala si Radya Humabon. And look, this is Radya Humabon Day, so we might as well see first what I thought of him. You know, when I was teaching in my first years, ang tingin ko kay Humabon ay uto-uto. Kinaibigan niya yung mga Spaniards na mga mananakop. And so for me, he was a collaborator. For me, he is not he is a weak figure, weak. So bakit dinadakila yung weak leader? Diba? Ba't may monumento yung weak leaders sa Cebuanos want to feature weak leaders? Oo, tapos 'di ba? Tapos 'di ba yung the descriptions of Pigapetta, of course, hindi naman to fat shaming because I am also fat, no? But 'di ba yung very 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 tatay, tito, no? Tito figure, 'di ba? So, in contrast with, for example, the Lapu-Lapu of Mactan City na, of course, we do not know how he looks like, no? There was no historical basis for whatever he looks like. Pero in imagery, in art, in the imagination of people, you have the muscular Lapu-Lapu who was not described in the accounts as such. We just invent it because he is like a positive figure. And you have, di ba, the positive figure of Humabon, of Lapu-Lapu, and the negative figure of Humabon. Oh? O tapos magulat pa tayo, may Radya Humabon Day. Di ba? So sasabihin nila, bakit ganun ang pagtingin kay Radya Humabon? Bakit parang dinadakil? Di ba dapat hindi siya example? Yan ang pag-uusapan ngayong araw. But again, I would like to point out that we have a lecture here about Humabon. So I do not want to preempt that kasi I will not give so much details because we have Dr. ERLINDA Alburo na ipasa ko sa kanya yung details of the of Humabon. I really do not, kasi talagang mas knowledgeable naman siya. Oh? But of course, I cannot, maybe the basic contours of the story, kailangan ko lang pasadahan saglit. We know about Humabon because of an Italian guy who was part of the Magellan expedition called Antonio Pigafetta. No? Unang paglalayag paikot ng daigdig. No? Primo viaggio intorno al mondo. And Antonio Pigafetta was with Magellan and ni-record niya yung trip ni Magellan sa Cebu noong 1521. Now, we have a statue by si Imaw ito, Abdul Marie Imaw. Nasok na ko, sana tama ako. Itong Cebu City monument to Antonio Pigafetta. Yan. And recently, nagkaroon ng marker unveiling dyan and ni-launch yung libro ni Feliz Prudente Santa Maria, Pigafetta's Philippine Picnic, which discusses the food, discusses the first circumnavigation in the world in the perspective of food. That's another story, and hahaba pa tayo pag discuss ko yan. But I was given, Xiao gave me the opportunity because Ambeto Campo cannot come, gave me the opportunity to be the one to review the Pigafetta's Philippine Picnic. So thank you very much. That was last year, April, if I'm not mistaken, April 13, 2021. So again, as we know, on March 16, he reached Samar, Humunhon, Samar. I recently went there, so sa mga people of Humunhon, hello. And also, eventually, he went to Masawa and then to Cebu. So, kaya meron tayong Quincentennial marker in Cebu. One of the 34 sites of the Quincentennial, Cebu. So, ito po yung marker of the Cebu. This is, in this marker, this is the lecture itself. This is the text of the importance of Cebu in the route of the Magellan-Elcano expedition, 1521. So, yan yun. No? And again, Dr. Alburo will give us the details later of that stint in Cebu. So, I will not talk much about that. Again, Cebu is very important already at that time. No? Why? because it is a tabuan. Ano yung tabuan? No? I have to discuss this because there's always this notion that Humabon was a weak leader and he bowed down to Magellan because he was, he felt parang he felt that he was insecure. Parang ang maliit ang tingin niya sa sarili niya at sa Cebu. Which is, if you're going to look at the Pigapetta manuscript in a Filipino perspective, iba. Hindi ganon. Humabon was not weak. Why? Because Raja Humabon of Cebu, actually, ang may kailangan kay Humabon si Magellan, not the other way around. Yan ang kailangan maintindihan. Why? Because of the important role of Cebu as a tabuan or a market, Market in the sense that the goods, entrepo. Yeah, that's entrepo. Cebu was an entrepo na binabagsakan ng mga products of various traders of different nationalities in the Southeast Asian trade route to China. Okay, so part of the Southeast Asian trade route to China, Cebu, one of the prosperous before the coming of the Spaniards. And so sinabi sa kanila, di ba? Sinabi sa kanila nung mga sinabi sa kanya si Xiao at saka si Colombo, no, doon sa Masawa. Si Colombo yung leader of Butuan Kalagan, no? Sabi nila, gusto mo ng mas maraming products, punta ka doon sa Cebu. Doon kayo makakakuha talaga ng marami. And so of course we all know na, 'di ba? Na ubusang supplies nila Magellan and they wanted to have, to trade. They needed supplies and so Magellan wanted to go there. So pumunta ngayon. And Humabon did not meet Magellan agad. He sent his nephew. I will not go to the details of that meeting, but you're given the impression that Humabon thinks Magellan is not really that important. I mean, in my reading, I might be wrong, and please, Ma'am Erlinda, you can correct me later in your lecture. You discount whatever it is that I'm going to tell you, no? Because I'm not really, I'm just an avid reader of history. Na makita mo na hindi naman talaga agad importante si Magellan kay Humabon. So, of course, the nephew is the Raja Moda. Important pa rin. But hindi si Humabon mismo humarap. You see? And they demanded taxes. Yun ang yung Cebu wanted Magellan to pay. If you want to trade with us, pay. You get me? So, ang mayabang dito, mayabang Cebu. Hindi nagbabow down si Humabon. Mayabang Cebu. In a good way. It was prosperous. We don't need you. Diba? But because of this, clever as he was, Magellan took out his card. At ano yung card na yon? That card is, big, yung kanyang diplomatic secret weapon. And what is this? Sinabihan niya ngayon si Humabon, yung mga emisaryo ni Humabon at si Humabon, kung kayo ay makikipagkalakalan sa amin, kayo ay gagawin namin, di ba? Gagawin namin ng mga kinatawan ng pinakamalakas na imperyo sa mundo. Now, remember that there is a difference in understanding here of what hari ng imperyo means. Because in the Philippines, wala namang imperyo. You have different datus. Sometimes they have a raja, who is like the leader of the bayan of collection of datos, but they are not really autocratic leaders. They are in many ways a confederacy. And datos remain independent. So probably the understanding of Praja Humabon was, I am going to align myself to you because that is like a confederacy. Of course, iba ang tingin ngayon ni Magellan because Magellan comes to Cebu with a European perspective, which if you have one king, everyone bows down to that king. Okay? So, yun ang makikita natin dyan. That's why I think hindi uto-uto si Humabon. Pumayag siya because you have a new partner, which is Spain, no? Is like, narinig niya yung Muslim, sinabi sa kanya, totoo yun, kasi nag-fall yung nag-fall yung mga, of course, they are mistaking Portuguese, Spain. Nag-fall yung Malacca. Oh. So, of course, eventually, he was received by Humabon and they had sandugo, which in Bisaya, ay hindi lang yan blood compact o sandugo yan. We call it pag-aanghod in Bisaya. Pag-aanghod is manghod is a little brother of a little sister. Therefore, the sandugo is not just a contract by blood. It is also you treat the kasandugo like a very special brother or sister. Your younger sister or brother. That is according to Dr. Vicente Villan. Dr. Vicente Villan of the UP Department of History. Kapatiran is the basis of the formation of the bayan, and he accorded that to Magellan. He accorded that honor to Magellan. So, of course, there is now a difference in perspective. Magellan is probably thinking, and Pigafetta were thinking, these people are trying to subjugate themselves now to us. Or at least Magellan, not necessarily Pigafetta. Pigafetta was always respectful. And so, of course, Humabon agreed to be baptized along with 800 Cebuanos. There's, of course, the traditional cross of Magellan, which was planted supposedly. But they always plant crosses. Ganun talaga yun. That's their style. They plant crosses and they claim the land for Spain and for the Holy Pope. And Humabon was baptized with the men. The next few hours, it was the women. The wife of Humabon was there, and she headed the baptism of the women. Okay. Thank you to Florentino Impas for Junior for additional illustrations, beautiful illustrations of what happened in Cebu. And that's why, despite the fact that it was in 1565 that the real Christianization of the Philippines will happen, we just recently commemorated what is the 500 years of the introduction of Christianity in the Philippines. So, gifted to give, that's the logo there. And I was there. I was present in the place where the 500-year commemoration happened, and I even met Raja Humabon. Raja Humabon and Reyna Juana. I met them. Of course, they're actors, no? Pero they're very good, no? And after the baptism, and maybe Ma'am ERLINDA will talk about this, may gumaling na may sakit. And they attribute it as the healing because you now accepted Christianity. And Magellan was able to heal this sick man kasi pinakain nila ng bulaklak na dinurog nila at pinainom nila doon sa may sakit at gumaling yung may sakit. Antindi niyan. Matindi ito. Because that, according to an author, saan yung, I have it here yung libro na yun. Wait. Ito, wait lang. Okay. This is a book called A World Lit by Fire. The Medieval Mind and the Renaissance, Portrait of an Age by William Manchester, a great historian. When he was reading the Pigafetta, and he saw na gumaling yung tao, that was actually a cue for Magellan that he was invincible. That he was invincible. And remember that the agreement with Humabon that he agreed, no, Magellan agreed is, di ba? And Magellan actually was the one who bluffed this. No? If you trade with us, if you accept Christianity and you trade with us, no, we are going to make you the representative of the greatest king in the world, the strongest king in the world, and we will defend you from all your enemies. We will defend you from all your enemies. And so, of course, what Magellan was doing was he was trying to implant on the mind of Humabon that you can be king of kings like in Europe. So you can now let this other Datu submit to you in such a way. And of course, that did not happen because there was lapu-lapu in Mactan. And so, what happened was, we all know what happened in Mactan, di ba? Napilitan si Magellan na yung bluff niya, tutuparin niya. No? Look at my enemy, oh. In Mactan, he doesn't want to submit to me. Ganun ba? Binilapol ni Magellan. Yes. So, they went to Mactan. They even told Humabon, watch and learn. Do not even help us. We all know what happened there in Mactan. Diba? Magellan died in the Battle of Mactan. So ngayon, look. His agreement was only with Magellan. And Humabon Magellan. Magellan is dead. Diba? There was, of course, this interpreter of Malay called Enrique. Diba? Who now is supposedly free, pero kinuha siya nung mga pumalit kay Magellan. And they did not want him to be free. And so, he now conjures a plan with Raja Humabon. Now, bakit nag-iba yung tingin ni Raja Humabon? Of course, there was this, I will not detail it, but there were women involved. There were women involved in this story. And the Cebuano men did not like it. Many debates about that. So, anong ginawa sa mga Spanish? They were invited to a banquet para kumain sila ulit, no? Yung mga new Spanish leaders and their crew, and they were all killed by Humabon. Why? Bakit kailangan patayin nila yung Spanish? In a way, this is where you see Humabon as a crafty politician. Diba? First, he wanted to fight Lapu-Lapu. But he did not want to use his own army. So, nagmamalaki yung mga Spanish. Ipagtatanggol namin, di padala ngayon natin itong mga Spanish na ito. No? Napahiya siya ngayon. Of course, no sa pagkapahiya niya, huhugasan niya ngayon yung kamay niya. Hindi kami yan nagpadala sa mga hayop na yan. And so, of course, di ba, they said na they raped or they had sex with the women there. But more or less, it's actually, I think, and a lot of us think that Humabon and Vanny Biernas, an international relations expert, thinks that Magellan was actually, that Humabon was actually wanted to restore his credibility among the Datus. Now, of course, these are readings and, of course, can be validated or corrected by Ma'am ALBURO. But this is where my the Humabon part ends. You see? What I want to emphasize is that if you're going to look at the Datu, warrior, Bagani culture of Cebu, it's reflected also in other parts of the country, in our maritime culture. No, in the tattoos, they were described as painted. There are also tattooed warriors or bagani, and we discussed this in other webinars, so I will not dwell into this. But if you're going to look at Cebu, this warrior culture actually remained, and because of the escrimadores, my idols, the escrimadores. A lot of the grandmasters came from Cebu, and their ancestors and their fathers were also the experts of weaponry. No? Eh dati kampilan, but now they use sticks. No? So yan, Kakoy Kanyete, Ansyong Bakon. You have the 12 Pares group that emerged, and eventually the Balintawak group. Very important in Cebu's history, but not only in Cebu history, because these grandmasters are known worldwide. People go to Cebu, foreigners go to Cebu to train with the grandmasters of Cebu. And for me, I believe that the escrimadores of Cebu are the continuation of the Bagani legacy of the people of Cebu, Raja Humabon, and even Lapu-Lapu. So, Magellan came in to make gulo de ayos of the lipunan in Cebu, and that is what he got. And I believe that that is, if you're going to look at it, in a way, Humabon was defending the interest of Cebu. Yan ang ano dyan. He is naturally a Raja who protects the interests of his people. Oh? So, nung nakita niya, baka beneficial sa atong people, itong pagkasama kay Magellan, nakipag-anghod siya. But, nung nakita niya na hindi pala ito talaga, guguluhin lang niya yung ating situation dito, di ba? He also, as like a very, very good politician, he gets away with it. And thinks again of what we call, ito yung good for the Cebuanos. So that is now how I read Humabon. But the role, that doesn't end. Next point, it doesn't end. Hindi dyan nagtatapos yung importance ng Cebu, 1521 Cebu, in national. Because if you have Humabon, you have the wife of Humabon. Tignan mo yung wife. The woman was very important also in the history of the Philippines. Kasi if you're going to look at the Beinecke translation of the Pigafetta, the French, it was indicated there that it was Reina Juana who actually asked for the image of the Santo Niño. Now, this simple act of the Queen of Cebu, a woman who was magnetized by the Balaang Bata, by the Holy Child, was crucial to our history. Crucial. So the Santo Niño was handed over by Magellan to Reina Juana, no? And in many ways, di ba, a lot of anthropologists suggest that Reina Juana was magnetized by the Balaang Bata because she looks at it as a nanito. So in many ways, this is where we see that Christianity that we accepted as our faith was a continuation of the old beliefs of the Filipinos. So what they do with Anito, they make punas de Anito, they also make punas the Señor. They also make punas the Birhen. You see? And that is what we do in Quiapo here, in Manila as well. Because it is the continuation of our old faith. In an exhibit that I wrote, Paghangop, the Filipinos and the Santo Niño, which we launched during the 500 years of the first baptism, the first baptism in the Philippines, which is the introduction, the real turning point or the real D-Day of the introduction of Christianity in the Philippines, which is the baptism. Diba? I was able to work with these people and also from the NQC. I wrote it with Lars Ubaldo. We were helped by Father Rick Anthony Reyes. Our exhibit was translated to Cebuano by Masi Cabañez, and it was also written with the Jerwil, Ian Alfonso, and all the others. And yeah, Dr. Lars Ubaldo with me there. That exhibit was exhibited during the Quincentennial commemorations at the Santo Niño de Cebu. So I'm very, very proud to be part of that exhibit. We put Anito side by side with Santo Niños. No? That is the explanation. That is the explanation why we accepted Christianity, because it has the same symbolisms and beliefs, almost. Iniba lang yung mga names. And that's why we were drawn to the image, a beautiful Anito of the Holy Child. Now, of course, we have to go back. Why is this important? Why is this Holy Child important? Because makita mo na yan, Santo Niño of Prague, Holy Infant Jesus of Prague, no? Praga, actually that's the original one, which was given to Princess Polisena von Lobkowitz in 1628, and she handed it over to the Discalced Carmelites. These are the royalties in Europe that are devotees of the holy image of the child Jesus. So in Prague, Czech Republic. But actually, nanggaling daw yung image from Saint Teresa of Avila, who was Spanish. No? And meron ng Holy Child devotion in Asturias 1340 in Spain. So hindi 1600s. Kung 1628 lang yung Holy Infant Jesus of Prague, the Spanish devotion to the Holy Child is even earlier than the Holy Infant Jesus of Prague. And why is that? Because in Atocha, Spain, this is like the origins of the Santo Niño devotion, the Moors of the Moros, the Muslims, went to Spain to conquer it, yung mga taga-northern Africa. And they have what we call the 700-year the conquest of Spain, 700 years. And the Spaniards wanted to take it back. They call it Reconquista. And so during the time of the Reconquista, there's a virgin called Virgen de Atocha with the child Jesus. What happened was, the Moors were getting the men at nilalagay nila sa mga kampo nila, kinukulong nila. So of course, the people were asking the Virgin of Atocha, mahal na ina, please, no? I-save nyo yung aming mga men. One night daw, meron daw bata na nakapunta doon, nakapasok doon sa kampo, at nagbibigay daw ng comfort at ng pagkain doon sa mga nakulong. And so naturally, ikukwento nila ito doon sa mga tao. Doon sa kanilang mga kamag-anak na bumibisita sa kanila. May nagpakain sa amin kagabi. Sino yun? Bata eh. Bata? So whoever he was, they went to the Virgin of Atocha to thank the Virgin. And then they saw, according to this story, the feet of the Holy Child na madumi. And so that is when they felt that the boy who gave food to the prisoners was actually the child Jesus. Okay, now, if you're going to look at it, this is the important thing in historical context. The Santo Niño of Spain was a product of the Reconquista against the Muslims. It was a story against the Muslims. Now, of course, what happened was the Spaniards were driven out by Raja Humabon, but by all accounts, the Santo Niño was taken care of and was placed in a box, diba? And was found after 40 years during the Legazpi expedition, which is the real reckoning date of the colonization of the Philippines. So, diba, 1521 was not important, supposedly, because hindi naman tayo nasakop noon. But in 1520, in 1570, in 1565, natagpuan yung Santo Niño. And nakita ng mga tao, pinapahalagaan yung Santo Niño, kinukuha sa kina Legazpi. Ipapalit namin kahit ano, ibigay nyo sa amin yan, Santo Niño. Yang balaang bata. Doon nakita ni Legazpi, ganun pala kahalaga yung devotion. I mean, yung larawan, yung image. And so now, they saw an opportunity here. This is probably the image that was left by Magellan. And Miguel Lopez de Legazpi said to the King of Spain, he wrote him, I beg His Majesty to send some of his aid because it is worth knowing and so that your excellency may understand that God, our Lord, has waited in this place. What does that mean? According to the great Resil Mujares, national artist, the great Cebuano historian, this is, in my conversation to him in our Quincentennial interview about the role of 1521 last year, in the Cebuano Study Center. This is where he told me na the link of 1571, which is the important reckoning date of colonization, to 1521 was actually just the Santo Niño. Yun ang link. So because of the Santo Niño, 1521 is important because eventually that will be the driving force of the Spaniards to conquer the Philippines. Now, of course, again, the colonization they used the Santo Niño to attract the people to colonialism. Diba? And that began the Christianization of the Philippines. And in the Christianization of the Philippines, the Santo Niño, because it was so easy to love. And sabi nga natin, diba, yung bato balani sa gugma. Magnet of love. It was really very easy. Filipinos easily were able to accept Christianity because of the Santo Niño. And by the way, I would just like to say that, diba, the Cebuanos, the Legazpi saw the Santo Niño and he names the place of Cebu Santissima Nombre de Jesus. Now, of course, I was baffled. Why did you not name it the Santo Niño? What is the kaugnayan of the holy name of Jesus, Santissimo Nombre de Jesus, to the Holy Child? So apparently, this is the connection. The feast of the Santissimo Nombre de Jesus was the feast of the giving of the name of Jesus, which is basically his circumcision. So, yung pagtutuli kay Jesus na batang Jesus, yun po yung holy name. Yun yung Santissimo Nombre de Jesus, which is actually, again, connects the Santo Niño de Cebu to Quiapo because January 9 is the end of the novena to the holy name. Kaya January 1 was the beginning of the novena, ends at January 9, procession ngayon. Okay, so close yan. Close sa Santo Niño de Cebu at yung Nazareno de Quiapo. So that is the reason why Cebu was named the Santissimo Nombre de Jesus. So they built a palisade there, which eventually will be known as Fort San Pedro. They built the first street there. They built their various, eventually in the years to come, they built their, yung mga jails, yung mga Moro watchtowers, no? Which again, of course, one of the provincial jail in Cebu is now the Philippine Quincentennial Museum, Tagbo, which was opened during the time of the Quincentennial. And the various churches around Cebu and around the Philippines were created because they now wanted Christianity, but also because these are fortresses. The churches were fortresses against what? Against what? Diba? The Muslims. Because the Muslims in the South or the groups in the South, not just the Muslims, but the groups in the South, in Mindanao, were raiding now the Spanish outposts in the Philippines, the Spanish towns, to get slaves. And so, dito nakita nyo, the context now of the spread of the devotion to the Holy Infant Jesus, which started in Spain during the Reconquista against the Muslims, was now becoming parang an image to protect them from Muslim attacks. Oh? So this is the church in Cebu, of course, the Basilica Minore del Santo Niño, which commemorates the Holy Child. Of course, this is the Cebu Cathedral. It was described yung aming forum during the sa Kalam, our forum during the after the Quincentennial, a few days after the Quincentennial, no, sa Palmgrass kay Ma'am Gibelondo, no, Dr. Billian told us, no, yung about it. Now, trivia lang, I got COVID after I went to Cebu last year for the Quincentennial. And so, I gave that talk in the hospital. In the hospital before I was checked out. So, in that talk, Dr. Billian said na the Pintados who are now under Spain, di ba? They made the Santo Niño their parang lakas ng loob to fight the Muslims, to drive away the mangangayaw, the pangangayaw of the Muslims. So, if you're going to look at it, yung towns in Capiz, for example, and in Panay, a lot of them, di ba, dinala ng mga Spanish from Cebu to other parts yung Santo Niño devotion. And so that's why you have the Santo Niño de Arevalo, di ba? And then in Leyte, coastal town again, you have the Santo Niño de Tacloban, di ba? And then you have the Santo Niño de Ibahay, which of course that Santo Niño de Ibahay will eventually inspire the Santo Niño de Calibo, which will give birth to the Ati-Atihan. And the Ati-Atihan will be copied by the Ilonggos. It will become what we call the Dinagyang. So what is Ati-Atihan? What is Ati-Atihan? It was documented, diba, in the Villanova University's Falvey Memorial Library, na Ati-Ati is the dance of the Aitas. Dance of the Aitas, which was eventually, the Spaniards allowed it to become a dance to honor, or the Catholic hierarchy allowed it to become a dance in honor of the child Jesus. So, lalakas lalo yung devotion sa Santo Niño during what we call the 400 years of the Christianization of the Philippines, 1565, was, again, the commemoration of the center in Cebu City. Cebu City, nagkaroon ng fluvial procession dyan, nagkaroon ng templete, like, during the time of Pedro Calungsod, di ba, when he became saint, no? It was a very big event. But because of this, the canonical coronation of the Santo Niño de Cebu in the templete, no? After that, nag-travel ngayon yung Santo Niño around the country, and may mga nagkaroon pa ng mga, na-inspire pa ng mga tao to spread the devotion of the Santo Niño. And eventually, of course, in the 1980s, mag-emerge itong what we call the Sinulog Festival, which Sinulog was an old dance already. Sinulog are the old dance of the ladies na naging festival, modern festival, which if you're going to look at it, in other places, in other places in the Visayas, Sinulog is actually a moro-moro dance depicting the battle between the Christians and the Muslims. Ito na ngayon. So, it all falls into place now. Now, of course, this lecture is not an anti-Muslim lecture. It's just that remember that in putting it into context, syempre nakahasal yung mga Bisaya dun sa ginagawang raiding ng mga Muslim because the Muslims wanted to defend now their interest kasi nga niyayari sila ng mga Kastila at inagaw sa kanila yung trading ng Southeast Asia. So you have to understand why there is such a resentment among the Visayan coastal towns against Moros. Historical yun. So you have to understand why. And the Santo Niño became important in that sense. Oh, so now the Sinulog, of course, is a very, very vibrant festival, diba? That actually goes back with the fluvial possession, goes back to our maritime culture. Bumabalik sa kultura ni na humabon. And I would like to say this thing, during the National Revolution, in which na-involve ang napakaraing tao, no? During the, what we call the National Revolution of 1896, tawag dito, wait lang ha. Di ba nagkaroon si Leon Quilat? No? Leon Quilat, the revolutionary leader. No? I will show you something, ano? The unpublished memoirs of Felix Suarez, no, was quoted to have said that during the 3 de Abril uprising of Leon Quilat, they were shouting, "Mabuhi ang Santo Niño." So remember, the Pintados, who now became part of the Spanish army, naging lakas ng loob nila yung Santo Niño to drive away the Muslim raiders. Eventually, the Santo Niño became the strength of the Cebuanos to drive away the Spaniards and eventually bring victory to the revolution in Cebu. Okay? So, again, the Santo Niño de Cebu and the Santo Niño devotion in general, the Aglipayans who created the Filipino Independent Church, di ba? They had the Biren ng Balintawak, no? Na the best quote is, "Ama ko, sumilang nawa ang aming pagsasarili." No? Ama ko, sumilang nawa ang aming pagsasarili. The Santo Niño became their center, is one of the images of the Birhen ng Balintawak. You have the young Jesus there. So parang this is a symbol of nationalism now. It became the cover of the Passion and Revolution. And we all know that the Santo Niño will also be brought forth in our other struggles, including the EDSA People Power Revolution. And because the Feast of the Santo Niño coincided with EDSA II in 2001, even the protest against Joseph Estrada was inspired also by the Sinulog. I was also coincided with the Sinulog, di ba? So yung our fight for freedom, our fight for a better government, we also invoke the Santo Niño. So to end my lecture, and I hope I am not yet over time, I would like to offer something to all of you, because we want also to contextualize and to also show people that we can teach this story, the importance of Cebu in national history, through other means other than lecture. And I found a very, very good way to teach it. And hopefully, maging maayos ang aking gagawin. No? I don't do this usually, but I will do this now. So we will sing Call to Share, which is the Santo Niño at 500 official theme song. A story was told of long ago, our gift of faith in Santo Niño was given to a queen, a tribute to baptism was the beginning of Christianity in our land. The story unfolded, helping us to grow in faith in Santo Niño. Let us bring it into action. It's the challenge of the mission, that the cross of Christ will continue to shine in this land. How blessed are we who inherit the gift of faith from Señor Santo Niño. Passed on through the years, we are gifted to give. We are called to share. Santo Niño, Santo Niño, bless us, your people. Santo Niño, Santo Niño, we pray. How blessed are we who inherit the gift of faith from Señor Santo Niño. Passed on through the years, we are gifted to give. We are called to share. How blessed are we who inherit the gift of faith from Señor Santo Niño. Passed on through the years, we are gifted to give. We are called to share. The Santo Niño means God is with us. Ang Diyos ay nakipagkapwa-tao. Maraming salamat doon, Reyna Juana and Raja Humabon. We have now established his importance as a leader who took care of the interest of his people. Daghang salamat po sa inyong lahat. I love Cebu. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Mabuhay, mabuhay, and thank you so much, Professor Xiao Chua. Daghang salamat. Let me just double check and let's see. Let's hope that my audio is clear on the other side on the live stream. All right. Thank you so much, Professor Xiao. Once again, daghang salamat. And nabigla ako dun sa pa-ending nyo, ha? Parang lumilevel up tayo every time na nagsi-speaker tayo ngayon, ha? Siguro pag pag the next time that we will be having you, ano na kaya i-expect namin sa'yo, no? Baka magte-telenovela ka na dito. We never know. But anyway, thank you so much once again. And our organizers have actually communicated that there are no questions for you. Di ba napakahusay, walang tanong-tanong. All right, thank you so much once again, Professor Xiao.